There we go. Good day, everyone. It is December 21st, and we are here for Regional Plan Snapshot number 12. About the focus of today's discussion is housing. And with us today is Leah Bloom, who is the Affordable Housing Project Manager for the City of Flagstaff, who's been leading the 10-year housing plan effort for the city for the last 15 months, which has been an enormous effort, but has led her to do an enormous amount of really great research that she is going to give you her very short elevator pitch version on today. I'll remind everyone that the regional snapshots are happening on noons, most Mondays at noon, but we are about to take a 1-month break. So we will not have another snapshot until January 24th, 2022. This will give us a chance to catch up on closed captioning some of the snapshots we've had and getting some more papers out to you, which of course you can keep watching our website, flagstaff.az.gov/regional plan 2045 for. And if in the meantime, you can always get in touch with us. These are drafts. If you find something cool or interesting out there that wasn't included in a previous snapshot, you want to bring it to our attention, you can get in touch with us through our website. And so with that, I am going to hand over the discussion to Leah.
Thanks so much, Sarah. It's great to be with everybody today. I'm going to turn my video off while I'm presenting, and then I'll hop back on for Q&A. So here we go. The stories we hear about residents and local reports verify the lack of affordable housing is not just an individual problem, but rather a community problem that has collective consequences that negatively impact Flagstaff. The draft 10-year housing plan demonstrates how these consequences to failing to create, preserve, and provide access to affordable housing in Flagstaff is linked to negative effects on our neighborhoods, health, children, environment, and jobs. The plan provides a path forward for the next 10 years and solutions to addressing the housing emergency that Council declared. We as a community must share solutions with open dialogue and innovative thinking, and it's imperative that we act in good faith together so that we can find creative solutions to move forward towards a healthier and more inclusive community. And that is when the regional plan comes in place. So I'm excited to share this all with you today. Housing is definitely interconnected with healthcare, equity, neighborhoods, zoning and land use, sustainability, and economic opportunity, all a part of regional planning. So as you can see on this slide, Council did declare a housing emergency in December. And with that, this plan is going to provide a foundational framework for establishing work programs and prioritizing staff work and allocating necessary funding for its implementation. The plan will increase housing opportunities for local residents. It also calls for ways to encourage more economically priced housing construction and to explore additional local funding resources for creating affordable housing. Next slide. So although the city has several housing planning documents, when declaring this housing emergency by Council, Council directed staff to create a single comprehensive community-facing document to summarize the city's immediate and long-term needs and strategies to improve affordable housing. Next slide. There are a few definitions we're going to cover before we get into the data. There's two. So first, what is affordable housing? And it is when a household pays no more than 30% of their income towards housing. Those who pay more than 30% are considered housing cost burden and may have difficulties affording necessities such as food, clothing, transportation, and medical care. Next slide. Also, another important definition is area median income, AMI. It is determined, this is what really determines who qualifies for affordable housing subsidies in our community. It's referred throughout the document, meaning the draft 10-year housing plan, and it explains how federal subsidies serve up to 80% of the area median income and how these funds are limited in our community. So you can see here on the slide, low to moderate income is zero, extremely low to low is 0 to 80%. So a household of 3 cannot make more than $55,350. And the reason why we base our household size on 3 is because it's the average household size based off of census data. Next slide. Speaking of census data, Housing Solutions of Northern Arizona and the city of Flagstaff update a local needs assessment every year. This reflects data from 2019 census. Data shows that 47% of all households are extremely low to low income, and that 65% of all Flagstaff households are extremely low to moderate income. Again, indicating that 65% of our population could benefit from some sort amount of subsidy to achieve housing that is defined as affordable. Now, this is really challenging in a market that's 13% higher in the cost of living and 29% higher in the cost of housing compared to the national average. Next slide. Shocking data also indicates that since 2011, the median sales price of a home has risen by 119%, while the area median income levels only increased by 16%. And roughly 22,000 residents in Flagstaff are currently living in housing cost burden situations. You can see a little bit more information on this slide. We separate it out by homeownership and rental. Next slide. Now, when talking about the housing situation and equity, we like to refer to the basic housing continuum. And this really allows us to use an equity lens. Flagstaff's housing continuum is a graphic that represents a variety of housing types available for households at all income levels. It indicates that households with different levels of income require different levels of subsidies in order to move up or advance through the housing continuum. For the purpose of the plan and regional planning, we will use the housing continuum as a method to communicate possible housing solutions for households of all income levels. Now, the city of Flagstaff has excellent housing programs that serve local residents, but just not with enough funding. So addressing the housing emergency will require adequate funding for programs such as eviction prevention, down payment assistance, and employer-assisted housing programs. It will also require the creation and preservation of affordable rental and ownership opportunities. These bold steps will be accomplished in partnership across the housing sector, including all levels of government, nonprofit housing providers, the private industry, and housing advocates from our community at large. Next slide. Because this plan was written for residents of all income levels, the Gap Analysis Working Group conducted 2 housing gap analyses. One was for affordable/subsidized housing needs, and the other was for market rate needs in Flagstaff. For more in-depth information, I would suggest that you go to the draft housing plan and also the methodology toolkit that you can see how this research was conducted. So not shocking to housing practitioners, data resulted that 12,072 low-income households are living in less than ideal housing situations in Flagstaff, such as paying too much in rent, doubling up, or unable to advance through the housing continuum. And that there is a remaining 7,976 market rate housing in need to free up pressures from Flagstaff's current housing stock and to catch up with population growth. So in a market with not enough households or not enough homes and without adequate subsidies, the people who really lose out the most are Flagstaff's low to moderate income residents. Again, that's 47% of our current population. And the plan's policy initiatives and strategies include increasing both the number of housing units and subsidies so that it provides target assistance to households in need. Both the elements here are mutually interchangeable and will require bold action to address the housing emergency. And many housing policies and strategies in the draft document have a direct correlation or tie with regional planning, which I'm excited to jump into, but a little bit more data. So we asked, we'll go to the next slide, Sarah, thanks. We asked residents in a housing survey that 3,000 Flagstaff residents took if they were considering leaving Flagstaff due to housing costs. And responses illustrated that the housing emergency is causing residents to leave Flagstaff, while nearly 39% of the respondents reported that they were not likely to move. A little over 58% of Flagstaff residents said that they were somewhat likely, very likely, or nearly certain considering leaving Flagstaff due to housing cost. Now, this is a huge concern for our community because Flagstaff is what it is because of the people that live here. Findings like this will require bold action to improve our current situation. And it does start again with the importance of regional planning and specific documents such as the draft 10-year housing plan. Next slide. Now, also something interesting is when residents were asked if affordable housing was important to them, the survey showed that residents strongly supported the development of affordable housing in the survey. 85% supported or strongly supported affordable housing development. And then the survey took it to another level and localized it a little bit. And they asked the surveyor if they supported the creation of affordable housing in their neighborhood. Now, when this question was localized, the responses in the same category of strongly agree or agree decreased by 20%. So another big communicating point we need to make in the regional plan is community opposition towards the development of affordable housing and finding the appropriate places for everybody to find adequate and affordable housing. Next slide. So now there is a quantifiable goal in the 10-year draft housing plan. I'm not going to go over that today, but I again would encourage you to go to this specific planning document. The goal will be accomplished by implementing policy initiatives and strategies. And the policy initiatives and strategies are, again, that foundational framework for establishing work programs, prioritizing staff work, and allocating necessary funding for its implementation. Policy initiatives and strategies, again, were produced by our Housing Commission and extensive public outreach and working groups. And it will be accomplished through the budget process and collaboration with city staff, the private sector, public sector, our community and nonprofit partnerships. There are many strategies in the housing plan that call for regional planning support. And those are noted here above, such as update the regional plan policies to support increased density related to affordable housing, identify suburban areas that have the existing infrastructure to support greater density and intensity in the development. And during the update of the regional plan, which is perfect timing, revise the community character chapter for goals and policies that include cost-saving methods that reduce the conflict between affordable housing, historic preservation, and urban design, and allow for more flexibility when development options, building types, and lot configurations. Next slide. A few more are to review the land use goals and policies in the regional plan, specific plans and city code to remove barriers to adaptive reuse for the creation of affordable housing. An important one, again, is to educate the community about the critical role affordable housing plays in a thriving community. And also to encourage diversity in housing options in all neighborhoods, understanding that exclusive communities are incompatible with the city's mission to protect and enhance the quality of life for all. Last slide. So more to be curious about in regional planning. This is kind of a slide we can add to today and have this discussion centered around. One of the questions that continues to rise is how can we quantify gentrification and how it impacts our community? And obviously gathering adequate data so that we can make sound decisions is imperative here. One of the solutions in the 10-year housing plan is to create an affordable housing impact statement so that through development and design processes, we can see what's being redeveloped or demolished, where new affordable housing is going up or being taken away. Another thing that many community members are talking about is let's get on the universal definition of what affordable housing is. And again, according to HUD, affordable housing is generally defined as households where occupants are paying no more than 30% of their gross income towards housing costs. Lots of conversation has been centered around this so that folks can really understand what affordable housing means, and if affordable housing is going to our community, how that can be defined. Last slide. I just want to thank you guys for your time. I had 15 minutes to go over a lot of data. I hope this is insightful to you, and I am here to answer any questions and just want to open it up. Thanks so much.
Well, everyone, thank you so much, Leah. That was an incredibly good snapshot of a really big topic, but we know your heart's in 100%. So we open the floor up to questions now. I can see that Mr. Wessel has muted himself and is scratching his beard. So
I haven't seen Dave in so long. It's so good to see your face.
Leah, how are you doing?
I'm
Happy
good.
Halloween.
You call that a beard, Dave?
Well,
on,
there's my role model. I'm working on it.
All right.
if someone from outside Flagstaff came across this video, what they'd know is we grow some fine beards.
All right.
This is the conversation we really wanted to have.
Yeah, so I have a couple questions that I think you can answer quickly, and then I may come back with others. So you ran off a list of people that you would involve in the provision and the discussion of affordable housing.
Yes.
What I didn't hear is employers, and I have heard in the past discussion of kind of employer-based housing or employer-provided housing.
Yeah.
Is that still part of the mix? How are employers being involved?
It definitely is part of the mix, Dave. We've met with ACONA and their workforce housing group. We had many employers on our working groups in the creation of this. Our policy initiatives and strategies are conceptual in language because we were given approximately a year to create this document, and it's a 10-year document. So we want to keep the language flexible, but also innovative so that we can get to specificity in addressing topics such as employer-assisted housing. There is a section in the document that we worked closely with our economic development division and have some great language in there on how housing and the economic side are so interrelated. So there are some solutions there that come to helping out with the folks that are living a little bit above 80% of the area median income, up to 125%, which is really our workforce, and creating more robust programs to serve folks with tools such as down payment assistance, employer assistance, housing, et cetera.
Okay. Then, of course, maybe I shouldn't say of course, but I'm the transportation planning manager for MetroPlan. And so transportation is of interest. To what degree have you looked at that housing plus transportation cost? Transportation being the second largest expense for most households.
Exactly. So it's so great that the transportation and the master planning is happening alongside. Of course, when any affordable housing development goes into Flagstaff on city land, it's imperative that that bus station or bus stops are close by. In the plan itself, we really merged that together with sustainability and talked about how much it does cost for households to have vehicles and maintain those vehicles, and how imperative it is to have walking communities.
Great, thank you.
Thanks so much for the questions.
I have, in the county, we frequently hear the words workforce housing bandied about. I resist that definition because contractor people bringing projects that planning and zoning like to sometimes brag that they're contributing to workforce housing. And in my opinion, housing that is susceptible to being picked up as a part-time housing by somebody in Phoenix or used as a vacation rental is not workforce housing. It is not workforce housing. In the county, we don't have a program to deal with that, and that's been very frustrating. In the city, we do. We actually have units owned by the city, controlled by the city, that can go through the housing program and can be bought and sold, but kept within reasonable limits. I don't see any other answer than that. We had an impossible situation 2 years ago because we're so close to Phoenix, and Phoenix is growing by 1 million people a year, and they all want to be here. So that demand is what defines our housing market more than anything else. And now with COVID, we have an increasingly impossible situation because everybody, because we have the Zoom boom. House on my little street just sold for $1 million. And so I assume that there's nothing that we can really do about demand because of state law. We can't limit vacation rentals. We can't tax people who own houses here but don't live here. Is that true?
You're asking the question that so many other citizens in our community are asking. And while it's a very legal question and I can't give you a yes or no answer, I will say that we do have policy initiatives and strategies that talk about increasing lobbying efforts to have greater control over second homes and vacation rentals. And yes, while it is preempted by the state at many levels, there was a big push for this pre-COVID, and then a lot of things were wiped off with the floor to pass bill-wise. So I think that the efforts are very strong, and there is some really interesting information in the housing plan where we looked at second homes and vacation rentals, and we tracked it back to where their primary residence was and found the percentage of based on where people are living. And I think you will find that very informative because you're exactly right. The fast growing population in Phoenix and having second homes to retreat from 120 degrees is a very big issue and impacting affordability in Flagstaff.
Yeah. So I think I think we should help the county get on board. I think we should link the city and county. And I've said this over the years in planning and zoning, but it seems to go nowhere. But I think, the county is got a lot of real estate out there and is a big part of the regional plan. And we should try to bring the county into what the city has. Seems like a no-brainer. There's already a structure there.
Exactly. We are going to our city council February 15th for consideration of adoption of this plan. Towards the end of the 30-day public comment period, the last group that I had the pleasure to present to was our County Board of Supervisors. They all showed 100% interest and requested that we share the final document so that we can look at ways that we can collaborate together. There's been a lot of effort behind this. And while we use census data, there is some overlap. Sarah can touch base on, we have Kachina, Mountain Air, Belmont, some of those outlying areas. That data is included in the document. So we have a lot of really rich data to share, not quite as far as Page and Fredonia, but we are happy to partner and hope to see that effort on a leadership level.
That would be great because there's real estate in the county and the city is restricted. Two more things. Northern Arizona Healthcare has a little project on the table. You might have noticed. I hope the city, and you guys are not elected officials, but the city should be asking a lot of them. They are a nonprofit. They get tax relief because they are serving the community, and they could serve the community by creating a whole lot of affordable housing for their 4,000 employees as part of this probably billion or multi-billion-dollar plan they're working on. Last thing I'll say is that I think Butler, I believe it's true that Butler dead ends into a section of state land. Let's buy it. If we're gonna, if the city, you know, I don't think there's any answer except deed restricted land as, which is part of the city program, and there is a form for that in the city. Let's just go. I think it's only like $6 million or something. It's not, I mean, it's not a crazy amount of money, and start wheeling and dealing with developers and just get real. You know, in my opinion, if you created 7,000 more housing units in Flagstaff, would that get us anywhere? Half of them would be out of town people, vacation rentals, and costs keep going up. I don't think that the private market builds its way out of this issue.
Right.
I would like to see creativity on the part of the city to own more parcels that they can control. Because I just don't see, with 1 million people a year moving to Phoenix, that the demand is going to change.
One thing I want to make clear is based off of, it's close to 8,000 market rate units right now. That is something we're going to have to reassess as our population continues to increase and see how our construction levels are holding up. So this is a living document, to be clear. When we do this, this was a specific question coming from council saying that we need to look at both sides, the subsidized and affordable side, and also market rate sides to free up, because we know there's not just one root cause to affordable housing. It's been a century-long issue, right? When it comes to the $6 million state land, I wish that our housing section had that amount of money that we could purchase it and build amazing developments.
You don't have it, but we just tried to pass, was it a $20 million bond?
Yeah, that was put on the table with COVID, but hopefully we can see some other options coming back out into the community if council sees fit for a general obligation bond coming in 2022, and putting it in the hands of the citizens to see if they're in favor of such efforts.
That kind of thing. And then, you know, just requiring developers to put in some real workforce housing, restricted workforce housing, not cheap units that can be picked up by anybody, but real workforce housing as part of every development. I just don't see any answer to it. I don't see any answer to it. It's going to be hard to live in Flagstaff forever because it's a wonderful place.
Mm-hmm.
And there's so many people so close, but that, I think that's a realistic way to help, at least.
I really appreciate your suggestions. And of course, we have preemptions against inclusionary zoning in Arizona, but our incentive policy for affordable housing is being rewritten as we speak. And I think some innovative tools in working with developers to increase deed restrictive properties that focus on 0 to 125% of the area median income will be very beneficial for future solutions.
Well, thanks for what you do.
Thanks for your suggestions.
Sorry, and so we've talked all throughout the snapshot series about the fact that there are large macroeconomic trends that are outside of the control of the city and the county to be included in the regional plan. But, you know, the choices we make now impact whether we are prepared for any solutions at all, or whether we stay on the path we're on. So I don't think it's inevitable. I think there are many other cities pushing back. There's many policy initiatives happening at the state and federal level that recognize that the market and the financial things going on in the market have gotten to the point where housing affordability is going to be unattainable. Housing ownership is becoming more unattainable. And so there comes a point where there may be some sea changes in the future. And are we ready? And do we know what our targets are to overcome those? Or are we going to be caught off guard? It becomes a very important part of the conversation. We have always had an enormous number of second homes. I have found news articles from the 1890s about tent cities that set up in Flagstaff so people could come up from the valley and, you know, maybe it was a full day wagon ride or something at that point, but they talked about people getting off the train and, you know, coming and staying the summers here. And so I don't think, not only is this not a new problem, it's a problem we've had since our inception. And there have been periods where we've tackled it better than others. And this isn't one of our great periods for affordable housing. We've had a lot of macro trends working against the community and not working fast enough to make up for them. But, you know, is 8,000 units enough? I can tell you the number of units we're creating today are not enough. And so those are the kinds of things we have to talk about. Is if we need an 8,000 unit, we've only produced 3,000 in the last 7 or 8 years. And we will only fall further behind. Even if the demand is being partially made up by people outside the city, that doesn't make up the fact that some of the demand is being made up by people who work here. So I think we are constantly going to have that portion. I think what Leah's report really does well, and we'll put a link to it with this video so that people can access it, is break those segments down so we can understand them. And then, yeah, we're going to have to continually be reevaluating those numbers. We have been falling behind since about 2004. So we're almost 20 years of not even being close to caught up. Where in the 80s and 90s, we were keeping pace with our demand fairly well. But we slowed down, and we need to start thinking very seriously about why and what we can do to move the ball forward if we're going to tackle housing.
And we're not growing any faster now, right?
Well, but remember, even if you're growing at the same rate, each increment is larger than it was 20 years ago. So we're still growing at 1.8%, but it's 1.8% of a bigger number.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So
and it's hard to imagine more construction going on. I mean, everywhere you go around town, they're building like crazy. You know?
Yeah.
Any other comments? I'm going to stop recording. Thank you, everyone, for coming today, and I hope you got many of your questions answered, and we'll see you in January.